All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC 310. We're going to do a recap that was last week's card, and it was a pretty good pay-per-view. Some things to talk about, so let's jump right into it. First up, we had Kennedy Nchukwu versus Lucas Bresky. Now, Kennedy, this is his second fight at heavyweight. Bresky, a bit of a slump, a few losses in a row now. And honestly, I thought Kennedy looked pretty good. I had the over 1.5 there, so it kind of sucked that we were just about to make it to the second round. It seemed like it was a good bet. And then Kennedy just rocked him with a nice hook and got him out of there. Kennedy looks great at heavyweight. I think he should 100% stay there. He looks a lot bigger. He looks a lot stronger. And I think it's a really good weight class for him. I'm interested to see how this goes for him. I think that he could probably get himself top ranked. Heavyweight isn't exactly the deepest division, but we're going to have to see if he can keep this consistency, because that's something that he struggled with at light heavyweight, where he'd look good, but then kind of would slack in a fight and this streak would come to an end. So we'll see how he does. But so far, I think heavyweight looks good for him. Then we had Chase Hooper, Clay Guida. Hooper looked great, absolute menace. He's been looking really good recently. I think that he's finally filled in. He's still only 25 years old. He's just been in the UFC already, like 5 years since he was 20. And even then, he was a skilled guy, but it was mostly jiu-jitsu. Now he can strike. Now he's strong, physical. He's not the weak guy anymore. He's not the guy getting out physicaled. Now he's stronger than a lot of these guys. And with the striking developed and everything, and now he's wrestling a little bit better too. He's just looking so great. Was able to get Guida out of there. He did submit him, and we can move on to the next one. Then we had Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. That was an interesting fight. I had Chiesa going into it. I bet Chiesa decision, which was a terrible idea. I missed the line. He was an underdog. It took me too long to tape, and by the time I got to it, he was the favorite. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to pass, and I'll just take the decision prop. And of course, he subs him in the third round. But good for Chiesa. I believe Max Griffin was never submitted before that. So it's a really good performance for Chiesa, and he did look solid. It's good to get a win over somebody who's not Tony Ferguson in 2024. And it'll be interesting to see where Chiesa goes from there if he doesn't retire. After that, we had Joshua Van versus Cody Durden. I had Cody Durden, and he was one of my most confident picks of the week. He looked good in the first round, did about what I expected. But after that, he kind of just gassed much. He does tire out in fights, but he gassed way more than I expected him to. And Van looked phenomenal. The takedown defense looked really, really good. He's improved that leaps and bounds. The get-ups also super improved. And honestly, watching him like at 23 years old with his striking, with his output is insane. I think his average is like 8 significant strikes landed per minute, which is just bananas. And he's just so on point. He's not the most powerful and he's not the most durable. So those might kind of affect him later on once he starts fighting the top of the division. But right now, he's looking really good. And the only real concern, the only real hole that anyone could poke in him was that his grappling wasn't that great. But right now, his counter grappling is getting better and better and better. And he's not even at a major gym. That was one of my points going into that fight was he's at a striking based camp. I forget the exact name, and his training partners aren't that good. He has like Daniel Pineda is probably his best training partner. So I was like, who's he really training grappling with? But whoever he's doing it with, Pineda or whatever, it's working. And I'm really curious who they're going to give him next. Honestly, if Manel Kape loses somehow this week, I don't think he will. But if he does, I kind of want to see Manel Kape versus Joshua Van. I think that would be a really fun fight. Moving on, we had Eric Anders versus Chris Weidman. Another spot where I originally picked Chris, then I switched over to Anders, and I was gonna play him, but the card started already, and then he was like only a slight underdog or not an underdog at all. It was like pick him, so I just passed, and he looked good. He was able to finish Chris Weidman, who did not look great. I believe that's probably it for Weidman, and good for Anders in getting that dub. That was a good performance. After that, we had Brian Battle versus Randy Brown. Oh boy. So I had Randy Brown there. I took him at plus 198. I think it was a very good bet. It's a bet I would make again and again and again. I know a lot of people felt that it was a robbery. I am not one of those people. Even though I bet on Randy Brown, I felt like Brian Battle won. I blame Randy. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's really skilled, but the fight IQ there was just really, really poor. He initiated the clinch when he didn't need to. He was a much better guy at range. Battle had absolutely no answer for him at range. It was Randy Brown all day long, especially in the first round. He was just cooking Battle. And then Battle started to clinch. Now, I also put some blame on Battle. He did miss weight by 4 pounds, and that's a pretty egregious weight miss that is going to make a difference. And it probably did make a difference in that clinch. And I'd be curious to see what that would have looked like if he didn't miss weight. But even then, if Randy Brown just showed a little bit more urgency getting out of that clinch, I think he could have done it. But he was too content to stay there, and that's what cost him the fight. I think he lost the second, and I think he lost the third round. And I only blame him. I don't really blame anyone else. I do blame Brian Battle a little bit for missing weight, but it happens. I'm more so like, dude, the way he's acting, I know you're the heel, and good for you. Like, we need heels. It's a great way to grow your fan base. It's a great way to be somebody people talk about. And he's done really, really well for himself. But I don't consider that, like, I don't consider missing weight and then laughing it off to be like a heel. I consider that just being a bad, like, unsportsmanlike conduct. And as for me personally, I'm just not a fan of that. I'm still a fan of Brian Battle. I just hope that going forward he treats it with a little bit more respect. Make weight, and that's really it. That's like your main job before the fight is to make weight, be a professional, and it's okay if you miss sometimes. That's fine. I'm not going to blame anybody. I have cut weight when I wrestled. I know what it's like. It sucks, and sometimes you can't control it, especially with all the travel. I'm sure it's difficult, and I'm sure there was a valid reason for him missing weight. I don't think he did it on purpose, but like, at least afterwards, just be like, yeah, I missed weight. I messed up. Not going to happen again. But no, he was just laughing it off. So for me personally, that's just not my favorite thing. But we can move on. I do think Brian Battle won that fight. I don't think it was a robbery. And I had Randy Brown there. So I would be biased. Now, next up, we had Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Another really close fight. I had Evloev there. I do think he won. I thought he was able to do just enough to win that third round, but it was very close. And I wouldn't have been, I mean, I would have been upset because I would have lost a parlay if Evloev lost that fight, but I wouldn't have called it a robbery. I think Sterling made it a really good fight. He was very impressive. He was able to get Evloev down, and good for him, man. He came up from bantamweight. He's really big. He's really strong and physical at 45, and he's doing a good job. Evloev is probably challenging for the title next, or after Diego Lopez, or maybe they'll do a title eliminator with the two of them, a rematch. Right now, it's not really clear what's happening at 145 because Ilya Topuria just said that he's going to leave and give up the belt, and he's going to go to 55, apparently because of weight cutting. I'll do a separate video on that. But what was my point? But yeah, so Sterling, in my opinion, is still at the top of 145, and I think he's going to beat a lot of these guys whose name isn't Evloev. I think Sterling versus Diego Lopez would be a really interesting matchup, and that's something I would like to see down the line too. Moving on, Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo. That was my underdog play that did cash. I had Vicente Luque. The line just did not make sense to me, and he did exactly what I thought he would do. He able to hurt Themba on the feet. Themba shoots, and we got the Darce. I played him money line. I played his sub, and that was executed perfectly. He did exactly what I thought, and that felt good. I'm sure Themba is still going to be great. Maybe top 15, top 10, whatever. He's very talented. He's very athletic. He's got the build. He just has a few more things to work on. I just thought it was a bit too much too soon, especially with the line that they gave us. After that, Dominic Reyes, Anthony Smith. Reyes won. Smith did not look good. No major surprise there. Not really much else to say. I think that Reyes could string together some wins, and I would not be shocked if he ended up back in the title picture. The guys he was losing to, like Jiri Prohaska, Jan Blachowicz, still top guys. And the only one that isn't is Ryan Spann. And I think if you run that fight 10 times, Reyes wins the majority of those times. After that, we had Doo Ho Choi versus Nate Landwehr. I had Landwehr, and man, Doo Ho Choi shocked me. I thought if he wins, he probably knocks Nate out, and he just cooked him. From bell to bell, he just absolutely cooked him. I love Nate. He's one of my favorite fighters, but he had no answer for Choi at all. Choi had him covered completely. The grappling looked absolutely elite. The striking was on point. The cardio was there. He essentially Nate Landwehr. He pressured him, broke him in the third, and finished him. And I'm curious what they're going to do with Choi next. After that, we had Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. Not a ton to say there. A lot of people didn't know why. Like, people were so upset. Why is Sterling and Evloev on prelims, and why is Kron Gracie and Bryce Mitchell on the main card? It's so silly because literally every time Evloev and Sterling fight, you guys say, Oh my God, they're so boring. Why do they keep putting them on main cards? Why do they keep giving us these guys? They're so boring. They're so boring. Both of them. Every time Evloev or Sterling fought, everybody calls them boring. Not me. I like those kinds of fights. I'm weird. But most people called them boring all the time. And then they put them on the prelims and everyone's like up in arms, screaming, crying. Why are they on the prelims? This doesn't make any sense. It's like, dude, pick one. Pick one. I agree with the sentiment. I'm fine with like either opinion. You can think they're boring or you can think they should have been on the main card, but you can't think both. That doesn't make any sense. I think I personally thought they should be on the main card because they are both really high level fighters, a former champion and a guy who's probably fighting for the belt soon. But it makes sense that they put them on the prelims because fans normally complain about them being boring. And meanwhile, with Kron Gracie, Bryce Mitchell, they're trying to get Bryce Mitchell back. They in the win column. They knew that Kron Gracie is not looking great recently and seems to be done. And I think they thought there would be a finish and Bryce Mitchell would be able to finish him in a highlight reel fashion. And that's exactly what he did. Kron pulls guard for some damn reason in the air, and Bryce just slams him down, arm on the throat kind of situation, and then just elbows him a few times and he's out and he got the finish. So to me, that's a good win, and that's fine to be on the main card. That made sense to me, even though that's probably not what I would have done. That does make sense. And good performance from Bryce. Kron needs to hang it up. Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. I had Gane there going into it in a parlay. I think he did not win at all. I got very lucky. I think it was a severe robbery. I think Volkov won that fight. And I think Dana White, when he's matching these guys up next, or Hunter, or whoever's doing it, Sean Shelby, McMaynard, whoever's doing it, I think they should pretty much act as if Volkov won and match him accordingly. If you're going to give one of these guys like a title contender, title eliminator matchup next, I think you give it to Volkov because it's kind of like, remember when Marias fought Aldo and they gave Marias the win and it was a robbery, and who got the title shot next? Aldo, not Marias. So to me, it makes sense to do something similar because even Gane knew he didn't win that fight. He did not win. It was a grappling match that not many people expected. I suspected that there was a chance we'd go to the ground, but I didn't think it was a super high likelihood because I felt like Gane's takedown defense improved a lot. And once again, this guy Gane, I'm still a fan. I'm a fan of both. Volkov's one of my favorite heavyweights, though. But this dude Gane goes for another heel hook. You would think he learned his lesson when he lost the fight to Francis Ngannou because he went for a heel hook when he didn't have to do it. And again, he did it. And again, it almost cost him. But he got lucky. Judges gave it to him. I mean, I'll take the money, but to me, that was a completely incorrect decision. I think you give both guys a step up next time, and you give Volkov the title eliminator or something similar if you're going to do that. Moving on, we had Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Gary. I didn't want to pick a side there because I felt like Shavkat would probably win, but I didn't think minus 300 was right. It just felt way too wide in a fight that I thought was going to go to a decision, and in a fight where I do really respect Ian Gary and his skills, and I think he's an elite level fighter, and he will probably be fighting for the title, if not next year, probably next year, I think. But if not next year, the year after, I think for sure Ian Gary will be fighting for the strap. And I had fight goes to decision there at plus 310. It was one of my favorite bets of the night. I thought the odds couldn't be more wrong, and I was right. The fight came close to finishing maybe like 2 times, and even then, like not really. Most of it, like I expected, a lot of cage pushing, some grappling, some striking at range. And we went all the way. We went all 25 minutes. Shavkat's never even been to a decision before in a 3-rounder, and now he went 5 rounds. And that was a really good fight. Like I said, I think Ian Gary is still in the title picture. I don't think this hurt his stock at all. And with Shavkat, honestly, like I think it hurt his stock a little bit just because I don't think it's bad that he couldn't finish Ian Gary, and I don't think it's bad that he couldn't beat him even more, but it just kind of hurt that aura that everybody thought he had of like complete menace. And now we see, he's a really good fighter. He's an elite fighter, could be next champ, but he's not untouchable. And I think that Bilal Muhammad is very, very live to win, to keep his strap against him. And that's going to be a really interesting fight that I'm really looking forward to. And then the main event, we had Alexander Pantoja versus Kaya Sakura. Pantoja reminded me once again why he's one of my favorite champions, probably my favorite flyweight right now. And I love the dude. I only bet Asakura because I felt like his takedown defense was better than people made it out to be. I felt like the line was wide, and I felt like he could knock out Pantoja, but he never really even got close. He had some nice exchanges in the first round, and did a decent job keeping it on the feet. But then Pantoja just ran through him. Pantoja is elite. I cannot wait to see who he fights next. And I'll actually be doing a video on that pretty soon. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.